So the Far Cry series and Easter eggs have often gone hand in hand. In fact, my first ever Easter egg video was an Easter egg I found in Far Cry 4. Well, I'm happy to say that Far Cry 6 continues the series history of Easter eggs, as today I bring you a whopping 30 Easter eggs, secrets, references and hidden details in Far Cry 6. Now, I chose not to rush this video out nearer to launch, as I really wanted to do my best to find everything I could. But nobody's perfect. And if you think I have missed an Easter egg, then please let me know in the comments. Oh, and if you're new here but are a fan of Easter eggs and hidden details, then perhaps consider subscribing, as that's what this channel is all about. Oh, and one more thing. This video will contain some serious spoilers for Far Cry 6, Far Cry 5, Far Cry 4, Far Cry 3, basically every Far Cry. So if you want to avoid those, close this video now and come back when you're done. Anyway, without further delay, let's get started. So it makes sense to begin at the beginning. First up is a find that I'm not convinced is an Easter egg, but in the interest of covering anything and everything, I feel it was worth a mention. When Danny lands on the beach at the beginning of the game, this body can be found right in front of them. Now, a dead body in Yara is nothing special, as we'll soon come to realise, but I've had more than one person reach out theorising that this unlucky fellow is Jason Brody, the main character from Far Cry 3. Now, to me, this is one hell of a reach. I mean, sure, the unknown man is wearing similar clothes to Jason, but for me, that's where the similarities end. If Ubisoft wanted you to think that this was Brody, I'm sure they would have added the tattoos that are inked on Jason's arm as you upgrade his abilities, or even a signature weapon. Basically anything, really. As I said, I really don't think this is an Easter egg, but I've included it anyway, mainly to get your opinions. So trying to emulate Red Dead Redemption 2 is no easy feat, and most games wisely don't even attempt to borrow from Rockstar's masterpiece. But Far Cry 6 does try to take a leaf out of Red Dead 2's book. Well, sort of anyway. At various locations on the map, a set piece of sorts will take place. For example, here is a man who never learned about fire safety whilst at school. Well, another one of these events can be found at this location on the map. So this head under a bucket is probably a nod to the cover art of Far Cry 3, where Vaas was seen sitting over a man who was almost completely buried in sand. Now, you may be wondering why I said probably when this quote-unquote Easter egg seems so obvious. Well, here is that same location, where this time we have to save a hostage. To demonstrate just how quickly these events change, let me speed the footage up a little bit. So simply walking a few meters away from the area is enough to completely change the scene, as this time we can find a man in possibly the shallowest grave ever. Like I said, I appreciate these sort of dynamic events in open world games, but the ones found in Far Cry 6 are pretty underwhelming. Now, I've mentioned before Ubisoft's habit of referencing their games in their games, but in Far Cry 6 they turned the self-reference dial all the way up to 11. First up, and perhaps the coolest of all the Ubisoft self-love finds, can be found at this location. So reaching the top of this tower and walking towards the edge will trigger the familiar eagle screech that can be heard whenever you synchronise in an Assassin's Creed game. Just like those games, beneath this dangerous drop are some hay bales that will cushion your fall in the AC games, but don't in Far Cry 6. I mean, it did work for me once, so by all means give it a go. There's even more Assassin's Creed references hidden in the hundreds of notes that can be found in Yara. First up is this note, which speaks of an ancient spear. That's the spear of Leonidas seen in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The knife of Chinese origins is almost certainly the knife Jason Brody uses in Far Cry 3. The urn is the urn that holds the ashes of Far Cry 4 protagonist AJ Gale's mother, and perhaps most obviously the concealed blades are the blades used to carry out assassinations in the Assassin's Creed games. In that same room, you can find another note that speaks of a video game called Starlink Battle for Atlas, which is a game published by Ubisoft that never really took off. Pun intended. Next to this note is the same toy ship that comes with the game. Or at least I think it is. I've never actually played Starlink, so I'm just hoping that this note is telling the truth. A note also speaks of a golden apple artifact, which is a reference to the apples of Eden seen in the Assassin's Creed games. At several locations around Yara, you can find magazines with the face of Far Cry 4 villain Pagan Min on the front cover. Fans of the series will of course recall killing Min in Far Cry 4, which was set in 2014, but he appears to be alive and well enough to give interviews in Far Cry 6, which takes place in 2021. I mean, we know that Pagan is fond of using body doubles, so who really knows if this is the real Min or not. And finally, it's Watch Dogs' turn to get a mention with a note claiming to be from the hacker group DedSec that urges the citizens of Yara to rise up. Oh, and I almost forgot, several of the bobbleheads that you can decorate your car with are characters from other Ubisoft games, with Marcus from Watch Dogs 2, Bayek from Assassin's Creed Origins, Rex Colt from Far Cry Blood Dragon, and Rainbow Six Siege operator Valkyrie being just some of the famous faces you can have sitting on your dashboard. So that just about does it to references to other Ubisoft games. Let's check out some of the references to the other games in the Far Cry series. First up is the return of a familiar face from Far Cry 5. Boomer was a beloved companion in Far Cry 5, but things didn't seem to end well for the lovable pup, as what appeared to be his grave could be found in Far Cry New Dawn. Well, perhaps things aren't all doom and gloom, as when tackling the Boom or Bust mission, you can find a note that speaks of series favourite Herc, who apart from this note is surprisingly absent from the rest of the game. The note explains that Herc pays him Yaran smugglers to sneak a dog out of Montana, the setting of Far Cry 5. Well, we can actually find this smuggled dog and free him from a crate, leading to Danny naming him this.
What the fuck, Danny? It has no identity? Give it a name!
Okay. How about Boom Boom?
Perfect.
So whilst we can't be 100% sure that this is the real Boomer, I'm willing to bet that it is. Speaking of Far Cry 5, some of the coolest scenes in that game were the ones where your character was high on bliss and had hallucinations of Faith's seed. Well, if you're still chasing that high, you'll be pleased to know that you can find bliss in Far Cry 6. During the mission Seeds of Love, you had to track down Lorenzo's children and give them an apology letter. Well, when at one of the locations, you can find a letter from the Seed family, who have sent over a sample of their moonflower seeds, going on to say that the family has faith that these seeds will make their bond closer than ever before. On the table to the right is a moonflower. Let's see what happens when we give it a sniff.
Something is coming. You can feel it, can't you? That we are creeping toward the edge, and there will be a reckoning. I spent years searching. I was a rat in a maze.
So much like the dream sequences in Far Cry 5, a ghostly vision of a woman in a white dress can be seen. Again, thinking of continuity, I wonder if the events of Far Cry 5 and Far Cry New Dawn are canon, with the nuclear blast only affecting certain parts of America and not the entire world. As far as I'm aware, Ubisoft haven't clarified this, so let me know your theories down below. Oh, and whilst not really an Easter egg, at many of the camps in the game, you can find a TV which will be used to access upcoming DLC. The faces on the TV are Joseph Seed, Vars, and Pagan Min, all villains from previous games in the series. The final Far Cry reference found in Far Cry 6 can be discovered in Juan's workshop, with this dog tag belonging to someone called Willis Huntley. Again, hardcore Far Cry fans will remember Huntley for his appearances in Far Cry 3, 4, and 5.
So just like a fine Turkish sauna, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Pardon my French.
Now, fellow Easter egg hunters may recall the appearance of a Jeep in Watch Dogs 2 that looked a lot like the Jeeps seen in Jurassic Park. There was even a tiny version of the Jeep that could be found in Watch Dogs Legion that would make one hell of a racket when approached. Well, continuing the trend of Ubisoft showing their appreciation for the Steven Spielberg classic, one of these special operations in Far Cry 6 sees you head to an abandoned amusement park to retrieve a powerful weapon. The park is dinosaur themed, with the gates being very similar to the gates in Jurassic Park. As you make your way into the prehistoric playground, you can find a helpful dinosaur that gives you the lowdown on the park before saying this.
Welcome to Mesozoic Park.
So that line was a reference to this famous line spoken by John Hammond in the original Jurassic Park.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
Whilst from the subject of movies, there is one other nod to the silver screen tucked away in Far Cry 6. Found in the description of one of the charms that you can use to deck out your gun, the Full Metal Jacket charm asks, "What is your major malfunction?" A famous line from the movie Full Metal Jacket.
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts?
Right, we're on the home stretch now, so here's something that you may not have noticed.
The internet is cheap, and I don't think I've ever seen a car made in the last 2 decades.
What's up?
Que vola?
I mean, the outcasts.
Labor camp. It's like we're at war with our own people, anyone who's a little different.
It's slavery. Plain and simple. Yara is better than this.
Not with a Castillo in charge.
Then we need a change. This paraíso bullshit can't be true if we are not all free.
See, but what can we do?
Yep, when stepping on crabs, you actually crush them. I mean, ignore the fact that your steps seem to completely destroy their hard shells, leaving only a brown splotch. Another really cool detail can sometimes be heard when Danny is driving a car.
Really wanna fake it no more. Take me like the Beatles, baby, just let it be. So come and put the blame on me.
So Danny will sing along to the music. Another really cool hidden detail that you might have missed can be seen in the Stealing Home mission. During this mission, you're asked to recover 3 pieces of baseball memorabilia, but for this detail, we're only interested in the jersey. Written on the jersey's nameplate is, "This text is so small and you can't read it." Well, I just did, so there. The final detail that I've discovered, well, to be honest, it was in the trailer for the game, so I didn't discover it, is this. So when aiming down sights whilst using the Discos Locos, the classic disco hit Macarena can be heard. Oh, and if YouTube remove the song due to copyright, I will leave a link in the description in case you can't remember it. Be warned though, it will live in your head for the rest of the week. Now, an Easter egg that's becoming more and more common is the inclusion of a QR code. Various different games have opted to include the modern day barcodes in their games, with this one from World War Z being my personal favourite. Go on, give it a try. Well, there are a couple of interesting QR codes that can be found in Far Cry 6, with the most common being found on the side of crates. If you scan this QR code, this will happen. So I'm not even going to pretend I know what the hell that was, so your theories are welcome down below. The other QR codes can be found on the collars of the Far Cry Blood Dragon themed K9000 dogs. Scanning this QR code will take you here. So this is a message from Dolph Laserhawk, a character from the upcoming Far Cry Netflix show Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix. Pressing the start button will take you to a puzzle that, if you complete, will reward you with some in-game goodies. Now, one of the most controversial elements of Far Cry 6 is the inclusion of a cockfighting minigame, letting you choose your preferred feathered fighter before facing off against another equally angry bird was never going to sit right with Peter. Well, luckily for Peter, we don't actually need to make chickens fight to see this next Easter egg. If you head to the Ubisoft Connect store, you're able to download a bunch of goodies for Far Cry 6 for absolutely nothing. Amongst these freebies are Rooster fight packs. Well, if you head back to Far Cry 6 and read the description of these new fighters, they may start to sound familiar. For example, the story and look of El Dragon seems very similar to that of Ryu from Street Fighter, with their rival being Ken from the same series. Toasty apparently invites foes to come closer, which is of course a nod to Mortal Kombat Scorpion and his signature move. Finally, Frosty is a chicken version of another Mortal Kombat character, this time it's Sub-Zero. So the penultimate Easter egg for this huge video can be found at this location on the map. Here we can find a cemetery that's hiding a very dark secret. Inside of the mausoleum you can find a note that suggests that this graveyard is haunted at night. Well, if you wait until night falls and then head back to the graveyard, this will happen. So a ghostly figure points you in the direction of yet another note, with this note being from a mother who has lost her child. Now, that's where the story may end for a lot of you, but if you head to Casa Dario, the location mentioned in the note, you can find this.
La bendición.
So it seems that the husband of this woman, presumably the ghost that's been guiding us around, was so jealous that his wife appeared happy that he killed her and left her body here for us to find. I really wish that Far Cry 6 had more moments like this. So to end today's video, it wouldn't be a Far Cry Easter egg video without a good old fashioned secret ending. After completing the prologue and making it off the island, you find yourself on a dock with the choice to follow Clara and become a freedom fighter, or to take the boat and run. Well, if you decide that a life of constant death isn't for you, simply hop into the boat and be on your merry way.
Discúlpame, Clara. Not my fight.
Despite the tragedy, the company promises that its secretive new resort park will soon be open to the public. In other news, war has ended in Yara. President Anton Castillo announced that Clara Garcia, the leader of the terrorist group Libertad, was killed by his special forces. And as the pandemic tightens its grip on the globe, the federal government may impose another nationwide lockdown. But first, how about something a little more upbeat?
So Danny seemed to be living a life of luxury, whilst news reports detail Clara's death at the hands of Castillo. The other secret ending isn't so much a secret ending, more like a Marvel post-credit scene. After completing Far Cry 6, you can hear this.
Libertad thanks you for your support, and I come bearing good news. Our Ribiro supply has tripled.
You know, it's so sad about that Castillo kid. I mean, what his papa did. Wow, that is crazy.
Nah, a tragedy.
Well, you know, some people are just sick in the mind, hermano. They're out of control.
Same time next week.
Well, you can bet your life on it.
Yeah.
Now, whilst his name in the subtitles is only listed as Smuggler, there is no mistaking that voice. That voice belongs to Vaas, the now iconic villain of Far Cry 3, who was apparently killed during that game. Who knows what Ubisoft has planned, but I'm sure plenty of people are excited at the thought of a Vaas return. So that's it. That was 30 plus Easter egg secrets, references or hidden details in Far Cry 6. If you did enjoy this video, then leaving a like is really appreciated, and remember to subscribe if you enjoy Easter eggs and hidden details in games. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.